Hello guys, this is FK from Langcasts, and in this AI dictionary video, we are going to be defining prompting. So what is prompting? Now, our typical interactions with these new large language models that are currently driving the innovations in artificial intelligence has been through chatbots. So we have a chatbot like, let's say, the very first one that started all this trend, which is ChatGPT. So what happens is that we ask it a question. We say question. Let's say, tell me 3 ways to solve the Rubik's Cube. Or what are the 3 top or 3 largest continents in the world. So we just ask it different questions or tell it to perform a task. And then we see our question go into the chatbot, and after some time, the chatbot starts generating a response. Which basically started as text. So we get this textual response. So we feed in our question to the chatbot. The chatbot is powered by a large language model. Those are your GPT. I think we started from 3.5, then we went to 4. That's for OpenAI. Then there was 4.0 mini, I think. Then 0.1, and now we're at 0.3. So our question goes into this chatbot, which is powered by an LLM, and we get a response. Now, ChatGPT, the LLM that is powering ChatGPT, that's the models, the GPT 3.5s, the GPT 4s, and the rest. They don't see this as a question, or that's not the terminology that they use for this. It is called a prompt. It's called a prompt. So what we are typing into the chatbot, or even if we are using it through an API, is called a prompt. Our input is called a prompt. And sometimes these prompts even get some pre-processing or are wrapped in some other things before they actually get to the large language model. But that's basically what a prompt is. And prompting is the act of having a communication or communicating with a large language model. That's basically what prompting is. Communicating with a large language model. And our input to a large language model is what is called a prompt. So prompting is communicating with a large language model. Now, while you may have been prompting by just typing in a question into something like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude by Anthropic, or you're using it through an API, a prompt is actually not just as simple as just a question that you type in. A prompt actually has different parts. So let's look at the different parts of a prompt. So let me say parts. I need to get my pen. Should be remembering that. So parts of a prompt. Parts of a prompt. So a prompt can actually be divided into 3 main parts in its most basic form. 3 main parts. The first part is the context. The first part of a prompt is the context. And what the context does is that it gives background information about the prompt itself, about the question or the query that you want to send to the LLM. So it's like metadata. Context is like metadata for the prompt itself. This is an example. For example, let's say you want to ask a medical question, but this medical question has to do with kids. So it is helpful to first tell the model you are a pediatrician. What you are adding by saying you are a pediatrician is context. You're adding context. And not just a pediatrician. You can say you're a pediatrician that has worked with kids in Africa, or kids in Asia, or kids in Europe. You can add more context, even give the pediatrician years of experience. So that's the first part of a prompt, the context. The second part is the task. The second part of a prompt is the task. The task is what you actually want the model to do for you. What you actually want the large language model to do for you. And for many of us, that's what we've been typing, basically. We just tell it, list 5 examples of gifts I can get my wife for Valentine, or how do I dribble a basketball? So basically, a task. It can be in form of a question. It can be in form of an actual task, like get this done. And it can just be, summarize this for me on different types of thing. Anything basically that you want the LLM to do for you. And this is the part. This is the compulsory part of a prompt. The context is not compulsory. You can choose not to add context. You can just type in your query immediately. That's what has made it easy for us to use chatbots, because we don't have to add context. We can just tell it and it will assume context from the task. But the task, like I said, is the most important thing, and that's why anytime you're interacting with these chatbots, most of the time what you have been doing is typing in the task. So the task is the second part. Then the third part is examples. Examples. Now, this is another optional part. Like I said, the task part is the only compulsory part. Examples are another part of a prompt. Now, what do examples do? And these are very, very important. Examples help you steer the language model in the direction that you want. Yeah, an example tells it, I want it in this particular structure. So you give it examples. You give it examples. Like, for example, if it's the conversation, you give it like maybe the first 2 or 3 cycles of the conversation so that I can understand. For example, if you want it to interpret something in French, you can say, good morning. And you give it bonjour. I think that's good morning in French. You say bonjour. And you can say thanks, and you say merci. So even the compactness of how you are replying, whether you are replying with long sentences or you are replying in short sentences, will also be taken into account in the examples. And that's going to be able to guide the model on how to respond to you. For example, in that English-French conversation, you can start every English sentence by prefixing it with English colon, and you write the English statement, then you write French colon, French statement. And by the time you get back your answers, that is the same structure that the language model is going to use to respond to you. So examples are very, very important when it comes to designing prompts. And that's the third part of a prompt. And examples are so important. They form a lot of the techniques. They form, or should I say, some of the techniques that you can use to prompt. We're going to be looking at prompting techniques very, very soon. If you add one example to your prompt, it's called one-shot prompting. If you add 2 examples to your prompt, or not 2 examples, let me get razors, get that out. Okay. So if you add more than 1 example to your prompt, it's called few shot prompting. More than 1 example is called few shot prompting. And if you add no example to your prompt, which a lot of us have been doing, if you add 0 examples to your prompt, it's called zero shot prompting. Zero shot prompting. So examples are very, very important in your prompt, but these 3 make up the 3 main parts of a prompt: the context, the task, and examples. Now, knowing how to masterfully craft and design a prompt to get the best response from a language model is actually a technique in itself. And we're going to be quickly looking at some prompt techniques. So, prompting techniques. Now, the first one we're going to be looking at, we've already described it, is the one that has to do with examples. The one that has to do with examples. I'm not writing this well. So, few shot prompting. Few shot prompting. So, few shot prompting has to do with using examples to guide the language model to get the best responses. That's the very first type of prompting technique, and a very, very popular prompting technique. Another one is called chain of thought. Chain of thought prompting. Now, chain of thought even really became very popular when agents started becoming mainstream. So you might want to check out our agents video where we talked about AI agents. But chain of thought prompting is a type of prompting technique that AI agents use to solve problems. And what happens in chain of thought prompting? You give the LLM a task, a main task, just one task to get done. What it now does is that it breaks down these tasks into subtasks and tries to reason through solving them one by one to get to eventually solve the final task. So it's very similar to how we human beings think. For example, if I were to say, make me boiled egg, that's just a single task. But in your head, you've already figured out, okay, I need to go to the kitchen, I need to put on the gas, I need to put water in the kettle, and I need to put eggs in that kettle, boil them, wait for them to get boiled, and then deliver the boiled eggs. So that is how chain of thought prompting works. A big task is broken down into simple tasks, and then solving those tasks sequentially or hierarchically or whatever way they are supposed to be solved eventually leads to the solution of the main task itself. So we have chain of thought prompting. Then the third prompting technique we're going to be looking at is called tree of thoughts. Tree of thoughts. Tree of thoughts prompting. Now, what happens in this prompting scenario is that the language model is trying to get the best solution. It's trying to get the best solution. But we all know a lot of times there are different ways to solve one problem. So what the LLM does is that it takes the single task, single task, then it tries to solve it one way, then tries to solve it another way, then tries a third way, and sometimes probably 5 different ways. It then compares the results and look for the best ones or look for the most popular result, and that will eventually be the strategy that will be used. I don't know what this means, but I just wanted to mean that, yeah, the task is completed. So it picks, let's say it tries to solve a mathematical problem. Let's say it's trying to solve a mathematical problem. So it tries 4 parts, and 3 of them gives it a solution of 4. 4, 4, 4. The answer is 4, the answer is 4, the answer is 4. Then this one says the answer is 15. It will just automatically have a consensus vote and say, yeah, the answer should be 4. And sometimes it just picks like the best, what gets it the best result from this. So this is tree of thought prompting. And the last one we're going to be looking at, last prompting technique we're going to be looking at is called meta prompting. It's called meta prompting. Before meta prompting. Now, what happens in meta prompting is that you use the LLM to help you generate prompts. So you give the LLM a task. I don't know why I said tasks. Give the LLM a task, and instead of generating a response, it generates prompts. It generates prompts that you can then follow. Basically, the LLM is still going to follow this prompt. It can then follow to get the best result. And this not just only improves the quality of the result, it also improves the relevance of the result. So meta prompting is basically you saying, okay, I don't know how to design instructions for this. Let the LLM design instructions, and then I'm going to prompt you with those instructions to get the solutions for me. So few shot prompting, chain of thought prompting, tree of thought prompting, meta prompting. These are some of the most popular types of prompting techniques. By the way, if you want to learn more about prompting, you want to check out Landcast, definitely. But also, you should check out promptingguide.ai. Promptingguide.ai. I think it's .ai. Yeah, it should be .ai, not .io. .ai. Promptingguide.ai. Fantastic resource for learning prompts. So, that is prompting.